So now I think you can see the shape of the finale starting to form. Spoilers here for episode 7 of season 2 of Daredevil Born Again, called The Hateful Darkness, is the penultimate episode of season 2, which we do know this is not the last season of Daredevil Born Again. We're going to go for multiple seasons. They're already filming season 3 now, and some of the actors are leaking things that they probably shouldn't be leaking, but like it seems like this show has a future, and I'm happy about that. We'll see if it has a future that like ties into the movies or not. Obviously we have Punisher showing up in Spider-Man. You know, it's totally possible that other characters could show up in Spider-Man or Doomsday or any of these. Maybe that one lawyer will be in Vision Quest, who knows. But this episode is a lot of setting things up for the finale. That's not to say interesting and consequential things don't happen in this episode, but I do think it ends in a place where you're like, okay, now things are getting going. I'm sure for some people that is frustrating, but that's how the second last episode of a show like this usually works. So I'm going to go through everything, talk about what I thought was interesting, talk about some things that maybe I was a little confused by, and ask 1 or 2 questions that I would love you guys to respond to. Things that I genuinely do not know. And maybe because the show hasn't told us, or maybe just because I don't get it. Also, my cat Mortimer is on my lap being very sweet because his hero, Bullseye, is here. He loves Bullseye because he pet that one cat and gave it an egg. Mortimer found out about that, and he's not getting any eggs. No. I don't know, unless they're good for cats. I can't imagine they are. Although that'd be very bad if he gave the cat something that was going to make it sick, so, you know, maybe they are. I don't know. So this episode starts with the events of the last episode. Karen Page is brought to a police department in prison, and she is visited in the prison by Wilson Fisk. One thing I think is interesting about Wilson Fisk now, he's back to black. You see a little bit of it in this moment, and I think in a kind of Luke Skywalker opening his black shirt to reveal a white shirt to show that he's good again. Now we're seeing Fisk kind of turn back into original Fisk. And then by midway through this episode, he's wearing his full black suit because he's just not holding anything back. I love the scene between Vincent D'Onofrio and Deborah Ann Woll. I think it's so funny. They like these 2 characters have only met maybe twice, and both times he has tried to kill her because she had provoked him into like getting really, really angry. And that is kind of the theme of this episode, is Karen Page making characters really, really angry. I don't think she is a character that like fans find annoying on this show. I think fans like Karen Page more or less, but I think it's funny how much this character's superpower here is just getting under your skin. I loved the laugh Kingpin gives. And that adds to something from last week's episode when Fisk is talking to Daredevil, kind of monologuing about how neither of them can leave. He has to kill him. Where I think D'Onofrio has always sounded like Fisk, like Kingpin. And I guess the way that I understand sounds like Kingpin, it sounds like the Kingpin from the animated series, which is this very kind of aristocratic way of talking. And we do get that all the time with Fisk, but I really felt like in last week's episode, when he's talking to Matt and he says,
"What are you going to do? Arrest me? You cannot. Kill me? You will not."
But that's a choice. This character could say, can't, right? He could use contraction, but that's below Wilson Fisk. He speaks very deliberately with full sentences. He takes his time. And I feel like you get that kind of contempt here with that ha. And then he almost strangles Karen. And honestly, in that moment, I'm like, oh, is that her plan to get strangled a little bit? And then it's clear that he did that because, like, I don't know, fingerprints get on strangling. Like, I was wondering if that was the plan. It does seem like she just wanted to piss him off. And also wanted to read him, wanted to see, like, where he is emotionally, because that's what she tells Matt later in the episode. So, again, I like the Karen Page, not a superhero, given a lot of stuff to do this season. I hope they threw out the wig. I guess they didn't have her wig. I hope they found it as evidence when they caught her, but then they, like, threw it out because it looked like a cartoon character wig. Yeah, we get another look at Jessica and Mr. Charles. She sneaks into Mr. Charles's hotel room, I guess. He's reading a book about Asia. I don't know if that's related to anything he's doing, something we're going to see in the future. Plenty of characters in the MCU currently have ties to Asia. And the obvious one here would be like Iron Fist, Colleen Wing, the characters connected to the Hand. We've also got characters like Shang-Chi, whose sister is currently running a criminal empire in China. You got Miss Marvel, who fought a bunch of weird interdimensional guys in Pakistan. I don't know. It's one of those things that feels so specific that it makes me think it has to be a reference to something. Maybe I'm just missing it. And this is where we finally get the information specifically that Luke Cage is the person that Mr. Charles sent somewhere. Jessica doesn't know where. Apparently Mr. Charles is the only one that can connect Jessica back to Luke Cage, which he wields over her. Mr. Charles doesn't say where Luke Cage is specifically, but he says
he's doing the Lord's work so you don't have to.
Which would suggest, again, the connection between Mr. Charles and Val would suggest that Luke Cage is kind of a Thunderbolt. Not necessarily on the team, the Thunderbolts, but the Thunderbolts being this new designation for a superhero working for the CIA, doing covert missions. And one that it's hard to kill, so one that she probably didn't send to the black site to kill all the rest of them. I think that is interesting. It feels like a a weird thing for the character of Luke Cage to decide to do. But when Mr. Charles says, so you don't have to, that would suggest that Luke Cage doing it means Jessica didn't have to do it, and maybe it's something like, oh, we were going to blackmail Jessica with her crimes, but we actually used her to get to Luke because that's who they wanted. I don't know. At the end of season 2 of Luke Cage, he is a crime boss, and he has taken over crime in Harlem in an attempt to kind of reform it, but also in a, like, he's now a crime lord kind of way. Maybe it's that. Maybe they arrested him, said, if you want to go to jail, you go to jail, or you can work for us, the classic Suicide Squad bargain. And we get the explanation here. And this was my biggest question coming off of last week. Jessica is angry, understandably, because she says,
you sent your assholes to my house.
And the way Mr. Charles responds,
That was a mistake. They were just supposed to tell you to back off.
it doesn't seem like that was the plan. It seemed like he sent them to go to her house, knock on the door, and say, hey, stop doing Daredevil stuff, and instead they threw a grenade into her window and almost killed her. Which I guess part of the Mr. Charles deal, sometimes he seems confident and he's got that cavalier attitude that would suggest he's confident. He's not very good at any of this. His guys got shot by Fisk, he got the port taken over by Fisk, and now in this situation, his guys are accidentally murdering. Like, imagine if they killed Jessica and Danielle. Luke Cage would kill him. Iron Fist, who probably isn't on this mission, because, like, I don't know, that just doesn't feel like his deal. Well, it doesn't feel like Luke Cage's deal either, so who knows. But, like, I feel like Luke Cage could just call, like, Daredevil or a bunch of other people like, hey, can you kill him for me? He killed Jessica and my daughter for what appears to be no reason. Like, yeah, she was helping you, but, like, that feels very extreme. So, yeah, maybe this character's kind of an idiot. I like when characters are dumb. Val's kind of an idiot. She's usually able to play her way through situations that don't originally work out for her into at least something that she survives. That's what the Thunderbolts movie ends up being. But eventually, I think one of these guys has to be competent. And I'm not convinced it's Mr. Charles. I've heard some people talking online. They think Mr. Charles might be a version of, or like will be revealed in the future to be, Henry Gyrich, who is a classic X-Men antagonist. He was in the beginning of the first season of X-Men 97, very briefly, and he is one of a couple of government figures who wants to rein in mutants. He's more severe than people like Val Cooper, but I don't think this characterization is that far from Gyrich, and I think having Mr. Charles and Valeria Allegra de Fontaine go from characters who use superheroes to get what they want to characters who the superheroes got one over on and now they kind of have to work for them, that would explain a transition of those two characters turning into essentially the Henry Gyrich and Val Cooper of these universe, especially if the MCU mutant thing really is the next phase. And it seems like that's what we're getting with Damage Control. I think it would be interesting. I think people like Matthew Lillard. If anything, the thing that kind of makes me think maybe they're going for Gyrich is Gyrich traditionally has very prominent glasses, usually glasses that like the audience can't see through, with a big black rim. And I don't think that's quite what Mr. Charles is wearing, but it's not too far off. I don't know. We'll see. I originally was just like, it's just another character. He'll be here and then maybe gone, or maybe he'll show up in another one if people really like him. But I'm like, oh, are they setting up an X-Men villain here? And one that I think would make sense to start the mutant saga with. Someone who's not a mutant, who's just a guy who is worried about mutants, who is angry that he used to be able to control them, but he no longer can. It was cute seeing Jessica talk to Cherry. Again, I've said this a couple weeks now. I didn't really care about Cherry in the first season, and now I like him. And I don't think he was bad in the first season. I think really it is just the material is better here, and he is in scenes that are better. So it makes me like this character, and he feels like he is part of the group. Sometimes it's just like they grow on you. But it's cute to see these two characters interact because they play similar roles. Then we get Daredevil sitting down with Bullseye. Man, you can't tell me that Bullseye is not the perfect antagonist for Daredevil. If for no other reason than a couple of episodes ago, Charlie Cox did one of those scenes where you take your shirt off to show how buff you are, and it's like, wow, Charlie Cox is in pretty good shape. That's pretty impressive. Like, I didn't know he was built like that. Good for him. And then, in this scene, Bullseye's not wearing a shirt, and it's kind of like, haha, I am also very built. And you're like, wow, okay. This is a real rivalry that's starting here. First, you killed a pastor, then you killed Nadeem, then you kill Foggy, and now you have your shirt off in the same show. He has his shirt off. This will build to something very serious in the future, I'm hoping. Speaking of Nadeem, this is an episode full of Netflix Daredevil stuff. The name drops here. Father Lanton, who, if I remember correctly, got referenced earlier when Matt went to the church, but was not named in that kind of like, oh, we're not going to say the name, but like you kind of remember who we're talking about. But then here we get Lanton's name. We get Agent Nadeem's name. Everybody misses him. And then, next scene, we get the return of Officer Brett Mahoney. Now, Chief Detective or Chief of Detectives Brett Mahoney. I'm not exactly sure what he says in that shot.
Chief of Detective.
Or Chief of Detective. Maybe he spent some time in Italy. And this is great. Like, sure, we brought back Wesley and Foggy for a flashback, but this is one of the first characters from the Netflix shows who feels like a Netflix show's character who is coming back to be a character in the show and could show up in the future. Thrilled to see him. He escorts Karen out of jail into a back alley. When I was watching this with Hannah, her immediate reaction was, oh my God, are they going to kill her? And I was like, no, we're supposed to trust this guy 100%. He would never do something like that. And luckily he didn't, so I didn't look foolish. But it turns out he's just letting her talk to Daredevil a little bit. And he says, we got a plan, we got to cross a line, but it's not the line we thought we were going to cross. And what that means is Daredevil's going to go to court as Matt Murdock. He's going to use the fact that he is still alive as Matt Murdock to A, get a lot of attention on this trial, and B, maybe swing public opinion in the favor of Karen, because Fisk went to all this trouble to venerate Matt Murdock, to talk about how much of a hero Matt Murdock was as an attempt to draw him out. But now Matt is using that against Fisk. It's great. Absolutely love. Like, I just think this show is working on so many levels, one of which is it's well shot. It's a good looking show. And the scene where Matt and Karen kiss in front of the window, that is the kind of thing you're gonna remember. It's gonna stick with you, kind of like Matt and Karen's date in season 2. And like, credit to the people behind the show. Not only is the writing like more cohesive and the season is more interesting, it also looks better. You know, I'm saying this for a while. Marvel always had, and continues to have in a lot of cases, the reputation for having these big expensive blockbusters that look not expensive, because they're like shot on green screen and there's a lot of editing and characters aren't in the same rooms, and sometimes that happens, and some of that's because of COVID. But I do think the last couple of years of Marvel productions all over the place, like TV, the films, all look great. That makes me both very scared for and also maybe kind of hopeful for Doomsday, because Doomsday is a Russo project, and the Russo brothers with Civil War specifically really got the brunt of this criticism, even though that movie is good. And people said, oh, everything looks great, it's not dynamic. I can't argue that that's not true. It could be more dynamic, but it seems like from what we've heard, Doomsday might be the best shot of all of their movies, and that would be a really interesting way to end this year of like good, effective, cool looking Marvel movies, ending with the people who made one of the Marvel movies that has the most kind of dull color palette, making a movie that does feel big and exciting and comic booky and colorful. We'll see. Next scene is Kingpin, now in full black, talking to Heather. First he talks to the lawyer, and we know the lawyer has pretty skeezy, so skeezy that as he's leaving, he tells Heather,
might need a little of your expertise on this trial, if I may.
Which, like, no kidding, she's the vigilante expert, and this is a vigilante trial. We've only had 2 of these so far. You don't have to ask her that. And, like, obviously he's hitting on her, but still, like, do better at hitting on her if that's what you're gonna do, because, like, that pickup line sucks. And you know what? This is maybe the episode, I've said, you know, I enjoy what Heather's doing this season. I had trouble with her in the past because she was kind of frustrating, because with this character, you're like, what's going on with her? What does she know? What does she actually want? Seems like she's kind of going with the flow. And also it was frustrating, like, she didn't seem to know that Matt was Daredevil for a while. Even earlier in this season when she's talking to McDuffie, it's like, do you really not know yet? But now we have like confirmation she does know, and that's great, because thank God. It's almost like this character got really smart between the last couple of episodes, because also we get her bit with Karen Page, which is a full bad guy scene. And that's this character being mean and cruel and manipulative for the purposes of hurting a superhero. Right, like, that is as good as it gets. Also, Fisk knows that she stole the earrings or cufflinks. I'm not sure exactly which those are. I imagine she's going to do something with them in the future. I hope so. It's a good symbol. Symbol of her becoming more Fisk. Surprised she wasn't, like, wearing him throughout the episode after this, but, you know, maybe that's something for the future. And then Karen goes to trial and walks in very slowly. There's people protesting, and it's a lot of extras, and I still don't even think it's enough extras. This place would be packed with people. And then, oh yeah, because we haven't seen him at all, Daniel Blake is back, yelling at BB because, you know, she's part of all this stuff. Okay, I'm going to take you guys through a little journey in my head. The first time I recorded this bit, like a couple minutes ago, I said he's wearing a Stuyvesant College shirt, which is great because it's so New York. It's so true to this character. And then for a second, I was like, wait a second, is it a high school shirt or college shirt? I thought it was a college, but maybe it's not. I went and looked it up. That is a high school shirt. He went to Stuyvesant High School, which again, is a real place. And I was like, why do I think it's a university? It's because Stuyvesant University is where Dean Venture goes in season 6 of Venture Brothers. I must have heard that and just assumed it was a real place, because so many of the places in that show are real. Stuyvesant, for people that don't know, is like a family associated with New York. I don't know if they're like the founders or something like that. Anyway, Blake's like, BB, you're gonna get me killed. And BB's like, he killed my uncle, another character from the Netflix show. Great. But Blake's like, I'm gonna protect you. Don't worry, I'm gonna take you to a safe house. He's like, I got a finance friend. And then he texts Buck that he's going to somewhere. Buck's like, that kid is cool. And Kingpin's like, he is cool. Yes, very cool. Back to the trial. We're doing trials now in Daredevil Born Again Season 2. We got a little bit of that earlier with the trial of Duquesne. I don't think either of these are going to be as good as the trial of Hector Ayala, which I do think is what I want from this show. Trials of superheroes for superhero stuff and like figuring out the legality of that. But in a last minute attempt to make it cool, Kirsten McDuffie brings in her co-counsel, which is Matt Murdock, with the haircut that doesn't look exactly like his hair usually looks. And he's back and everyone's all impressed and it's cool. He questions the cop that everybody on the internet hates. He questions the other cop that everybody on the internet hates, and everybody that read the comic books is like, come on, man, that's not Cole North. But this is another time where we're seeing a little bit of like, oh, maybe Cole North isn't as in it as he seems. Like maybe he feels a little bad about stuff. And it's too little too late, but there, there it is. Then we see the governor, and she's like, we gotta get rid of Fisk, he's a bad guy. And then we get the scene with Daniel Blake and BB, where he brings her to the safe house. I love the detail I love about him. I love that this guy just loves New York sports. Half of the clothes he wears, half of the things in his bedroom are New York sports things. And this is no exception. He seems to be wearing like a Knicks Miles McBride themed jacket. You see the Ledoux on the shoulder, and then the number 2 on the front of the jacket. Also, it looks like Ledoux is like a brand. I'm not a good clothing guy, but I assume because it's this character, I'm like, that's a Knicks thing. This guy spent all of his money on the expensive, fancy Knicks things, and I love that. And BB pleads for her life, and for the first time in the history of cinema, it works. A character says no, and then the other character goes, all right, I changed my mind. She says it a little differently than how like Princess Leia says it in Star Wars Episode 4.
No.
But Daniel Blake has decided to be a good guy. He is this season's Nadim, and he will get the Nadim treatment of this season as well. Then everybody goes to the garage after the trial, and the ATF gets out, and they're like, oh, we gotta start killing guys. So they do kill that one unnamed police officer. And in this moment, when Cherry doesn't immediately get in the truck and starts taking shots, I'm like, oh my god, if you guys kill Cherry, my favorite character who I have always loved, I will be so upset. But instead they do not. Cherry survives. Matt manages to skewer one of them with one of his billy clubs, and then he is shot. Rough couple of days for Matt between all the fighting at the boxing ring and now this. It's like, that's kind of the fun of this character, is he does get beat up a lot and he can take it. And then some guy tries to strangle the governor, but it's okay because Bullseye is there to kill him because he's a hero, just a full good guy now. We all love him, no problems, he's never done anything wrong. And pet that cat, killed the guy with the lobster, very cool. Then Daniel Blake goes to stand up to Buck Cashman, and Buck Cashman takes off his jacket to beat him up. And in this scene, I know like a lot of these scenes are supposed to feel like this, I do genuinely feel like Buck Cashman is mad at Daniel because he has been pulling for Daniel. You can see how kind of proud he is when he tells Fisk, he's like, this Daniel kid, he's pretty cool, earlier in the episode. Now here he's like, you screwed me over, but also you screwed yourself over. I believed in you. And I really like their dynamic. Again, I think the character of Daniel Blake always worked for me. Like I think in season 1, I mean, go back and find a clip of me in season 1 saying I hate him. Maybe that's there. But I think in season 1, he was a character that I was interested in. Buck was not. Buck was fine. But now, because of the connection between these two in this relationship, Buck is very interesting. Also, speaking of relationships, Karen Page gets grilled by Heather. And now Heather is actually acting like an evil psychiatrist for vigilantes. Like, she is doing bad guy stuff. She fully knows she's doing it. You know, she came here to mess with Karen, and she ends up smacking her. Because, again, Karen is very good at provoking these people. But, like, this scene, I think, for me, was the scene that sold me on, like, no, Heather's a good character now. I like her. And I thought all the Muse stuff this season has been interesting. And I love the scene where she choked Buck. That was wild. But I'd say this is the first scene where it seems like that character is living up to the promise of what that character can be here. And it was great to see. You'll get that one shot where Muse is in the background, but then the camera doesn't tilt over and go, so maybe that's a sign that she's getting control, that she's getting a hold of it. That's interesting. That's cool. But then we get the end of the episode, the very end, and these are two things happening at the same time. Buck is wrestling with Daniel Blake. Daniel Blake does, again, the classic move, something that happened on another show, a different show that is going on at the exact same time and probably attracts a lot of the same audience, but has that conversation where you know this character's about to die and they say, you're next. He's going to get you next because that's just what this guy does. I don't want to say it because it kind of spoils something from the other show, but still, like, for me, I was like, oh, we're doing that again. Great. Because that is important. That's something about these fascist regimes, is that even if you're on the inside and you're cool, eventually it's going to turn back on you. We saw that at the end of Andor with Deidre Miro being in jail. Now we're getting some of that here. Love it. And then at the same time, Matt Murdock is at the church and Jessica Jones is there. And she's like, I'm going to help you because I'm Jessica Jones. And it's like, this is a very dramatic entrance for a character I kind of expected would be around, even without knowing, because I do think before the season came out, they announced how many episodes she was going to be in, or at least it was reported. But this moment is very dramatic, and you see the shoes, and you're supposed to be like, ah, it's her, oh my gosh. It feels like this is supposed to be her introduction. And I still like the stuff with Danielle, and I love watching her fight alongside Daredevil at the pier. Like, that was all great. But just the way this is framed, this has the like, oh man, this is someone special, but who is it? Oh my god, Jessica Jones is here to help. You know, I don't know if we could have gotten away with that necessarily, but if you didn't have the stuff in the beginning of this episode where she hangs out with Matt, and you didn't have her bits in episode 6, which when it comes down to it is not an incredible amount of time. If you were just referencing her and saying like, she's helping me investigate, she's taking pictures or something, and maybe even someone to ask like, do you have any friends that can help? And they're like, no, there's one, but he's overseas doing some mission or something like that. I haven't talked to her in a while. If that was how they set this up, and this was the moment where she actually showed up and was like, okay, I'm here for the finale, it's gonna be big. I don't know, that's what this moment felt like to me. Maybe it's because that's how they framed the trailer. In the trailer that showed Jessica Jones, they used this as her introduction. But anyway, overall, a solid episode. I would say without the Daniel Blake stuff, maybe a little underwhelming. I understand why people are like, episodes 4 and 5 were great, 6 is fun, 7's fine. I think that's fair, but this is definitely setting up stuff in episode 8 that I think is going to be really exciting. I think you guys are going to like. And like, to do that, you need to have this. And you need to have this breather, this time when characters just sitting down, talking to each other, figuring out what their next moves are, figuring out what's important to them. But we have one more episode, and I would expect some cool stuff. Now, you know, speaking of laws and courts and stuff like that, this reminds me of a video I watched recently. It's actually by Tom Nichols on their second channel, Slow News Day. And this video is about the different laws associated with phone bans in schools. And it's in the context of England, but this is something you see all over the place. And I think it's a really interesting topic because phones are important to people, but at the same time, clearly they're very distracting. It's a very nuanced issue. And I like to see how Tom talks about it. The video is called The Rise and Rise of Phone Bans. And you can watch that video along with a bunch of others. And all my videos are early and ad-free exclusively on this video's sponsor, Nebula. Nebula is where you should be watching these. It's the creator-owned subscription streaming service that I helped to create. So basically all my videos, that's Nando V Movies videos and the Nando Cut videos too, go on Nebula first. You can watch them without ads, you can download them to watch them offline. It is without a doubt the best way to watch my videos. And that's not all, because you got exclusive content on Nebula, like I said, like Tom Nichols videos. But that's not our only Tom. We also have Tom Scott, who's doing a series called England, where he goes to different counties in England and does an interesting thing, learns about an interesting industry. And in this week's episode, he drives a boat from his childhood that makes him so happy. It's the happiest I've seen a person in a very long time. And episodes of his series, England, go up on Nebula a week early. And Nebula is already a steal at $5 a month, or just $60 a year. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get a year of Nebula for just $30. That is $2.50 a month. It is an amazing deal. Again, go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut to check it out. So thank you for watching. Next week, the last episode of Daredevil Born Again Season 2. Very excited. Thank you for watching. I'll see you then.